Dr. Nicole Carter and Julesy here. We will be discussing Toni Morrison's Beloved. We'll be going through part one and some of part one because there will be a continuation later this week. So
We already have the date for that too. We gotta send out a newsletter so people know. I don't even know if folks knew about this one
yeah, well, we posted it. So
in the Facebook
uh,
group. Yeah, but
yeah, so yeah, the next one is on Friday. So we can pub that and make sure you all turn out for that one too. And ask all the questions that you can. So I think we can start just going through.
yes, we have an updated syllabus. It's on the site now. So if you're an insider, download it. Okay, here it goes. And if you already purchased it, I sent out an email to all 30 of y'all today. So you should have an updated link to download. Right.
And Diana loves food. The date is what is the date? What's Friday? It's this Friday coming up.
Do you want to explain how far into chapter the first part we're going? Friday is the 12th.
The 12th. Yes.
Who's supposed to be
So we will be ending so we're gonna start at it's actually two epigraphs in this book, but we're gonna start with the second one and we'll end today in discussing the quote related to her milk being stolen by the nephews of school teacher.
you
And
have a page?
yes, so that is page 19 in the
No way.
book.
It's not page 19.
The last chapter, the last quote, but it kind of goes through to different quotes throughout.
I'm wondering how far, what part, because I've only rated page for 47, and the nephews have not stolen. The school teacher was just introduced where I'm at, so I think we're probably somewhere like around page. It's hard, right? So the syllabus, we notate chapters, but you'll have to manually count the chapters because this book doesn't have chapters in it. And so
No,
because people are reading, like if you listen to the audiobook, you get chapters, right?
uh,
I don't Does the ebook list chapters? Right. But
it
if you have a
does.
physical copy of it, it does not list chapters. So just to make it accessible, so no matter what format you're reading, we did list chapters. So I'm assuming we probably get around, I don't even know what chapter, because I have the physical copy. So I'm like, I just
So
assume
the physical copy, this one,
yes.
right? You see it. So they talk about the breast milk. Yeah, we got the same one. So they talk about it on page 19, but they also talk about it in other areas as well throughout the
Okay.
book. So
Right.
yeah,
This is a really interesting read. And I
it
feel like,
is.
you definitely have to take your time with it because there are so many like allegories and like the way Morrison describes like a like I was just getting to the part where Seth is how do they pronounce the name?
Seth.
Seth, okay, is telling Denver part of the story about how she ran away while pregnant. But like even like how like Denver walks up on the house and you're trying to figure out, okay, is she seeing things or
Right.
is she in a past memory? Is it a rememory or
Yes,
is
a
it present
rememory.
tense? So and it goes back and forth that you really do have to. Sometimes you're just gonna have to sit and digest what you just read because
Well,
it was a
and
lot of
yes,
work.
because that's her writing style. Her writing style is not chronological. It is like always bringing up memories, flashbacks, and then all of a sudden they talk about what's happening right now. So, like,
Yeah, it's very complex. I want to say.
yeah,
I want to make sure we are streaming in a group since I only see YouTube comments here.
I selected it.
No, we are. We are. We're in the group.
Okay,
It's only 7 of y'all watching. It's okay. We love you too.
right.
Happy Monday.
So, Beloved is awesome. Y'all need to get into this
I am enjoying
discussion.
it. It
Yeah.
is. I get why people might be turned off or want to, because of the trauma. But like,
Hmm.
I watched Malcolm and Marie this weekend, and then I got a screener for Judas and the Black Messiah. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I did not want to like Judas and the Black Messiah. I didn't, because I personally don't agree with Daniel Kaluuya being casted as Fred Hampton. But it's good. It's a good movie, and I think.
Okay, so now I'm gonna have to.
No, you gotta
I'm
go see
afraid
it.
to watch
But
the first one. Actually, the what is it?
the original documentary that came out in the 90s.
No, the other one, the one you mentioned before.
Oh,
The one
Malcolm and
that's on. Yes, I'm actually, because of the trauma associated with it.
You know, I feel like Malcolm and Marie is like Queen and Slim, trauma porn for no, and it doesn't like it's just trauma. And then what are you supposed to do with the trauma, right?
Yeah,
Versus like Judas and the Black Messiah, it's trauma, right? Because Black life in America is
it's
traumatic.
trauma. Yeah.
But
So
they take care of the audience. You don't like. I don't feel like I just watched people like. I didn't feel like I watched gore for the sake of it just being gory. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
and I feel like that's very similar to Toni Morrison. Well, Toni Morrison, she takes care of the audience. Like, you're not just reading about traumatic events for the sake of it being traumatic.
right. It's telling a story. It's telling the history. It's actually based on like.
It's
So
historical
even
fiction.
though people say that it's based on this one story, we do know that like all of her books are based on the stories of people, Black folks, in living and trying to thrive in the U.S. So yeah, for me, it was deep because of where I live right now. So
Yeah,
like
in Ohio. And for me, it's
living
because
in a
I read all this history. So I
yeah,
wonder, like, we have to get Chloe if she has time to come in for one of the live discussions, since she studies sort of this era, right? And like it's so much, it's historical fiction. And so many of the themes and why we're reading Spillers along with this connect back to how do we talk about single Black mothers? How do we talk about Black women and womanhood and motherhood, and how that has been impacted by our history as slaves in this country, right?
yes,
And being left out of the access to femininity, and
mm-hmm,
how we've faced engendered violence and
mm-hmm,
all these other things. So yeah, it definitely.
definitely.
I'm like reading this and I'm like, oh, this connects to so many things that
So many things, so
I be
many.
reading in history books.
Yes. So yeah, and then I was like, so if this were like a non-fictional piece, like they would have been enslaved right down the road, right? Because I live 45 minutes away from Kentucky. So
Yeah.
like it's just very interesting.
You go to Kentucky to buy your cigarettes.
No, I don't do nothing in Kentucky. They can keep Kentucky. So except for Berea, Kentucky, because you know Bell Hooks lives there. So
Oh yes, who we couldn't get in touch with.
yeah, she's a little
Trying to get in touch
difficult.
with the author for next month, and I'm like, we haven't had author chats in so long. But
Yeah.
everybody is always like, can you do it when the paperback comes out? And I'm like, we're not a marketing book club. We're just a book
Right. Wow.
trying. We're trying, y'all. All
Yes.
right, let's get into this book. You want to start it off?
Yes, I can start it off. So, we are again going over part one and some of part one, so not part one in its entirety. But we are going through the beginning right now. And so we're opening with the epigraph. And so the epigraph reads, I will call them my people, which were not my people, and her beloved, which was not beloved. Romans 9:25.
That's to get biblical. Amen.
Yes.
Mhm. I ain't never go to church, but yeah, I mean, I used to go to church as an adult.
Okay. All
You
right.
know, this is crazy because I started reading the book and I was so confused. And I do think you'd have to have the context that this is that close to slavery, right? Like this is
Mhm.
just after, because I don't know that they explicitly say it, at least in the part in the book where I'm at, that they're slaves. And so
Yeah.
you start reading it and you're like, what the fuck is going on? And you're
Yes.
like, oh, slavery. Yes,
Yes.
okay. Context.
Like literally just got free. Like
Yeah, like
literally.
Sweet Home is the plantation. Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Uh, so the question associated with this, the epigraph is, how does Morrison's inclusion of this biblical passage referencing God's discretion to save and show mercy to those who are not his, her, or their people shape the opening of this chapter.
Well, even though I am the person that oversees the production of the syllabus, which is why I have context for the book, because otherwise this is my first time reading it with all of y'all, and I'm only on page 47. But like, I knew that one of the themes of the book, and really this had more to do because we had this Alicia and Chloe, or CJ, we had this back and forth about why reading Spillers alongside, and that's how we decided to read Beloved, was because we knew we were going to read Spillers.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew there was going to be this huge theme about identity and ownership and autonomy, right? So like, even how we see Seth as a mother.
Yeah.
And because she doesn't have autonomy over herself, over her children, and the sort of like word to like Dorothy Roberts killing the Black body, do we really have an understanding today of what it meant for Black women to be birthing the next generation so that we could exist, but birthing generations that were not their own, right?
Right.
Like,
they were birthing generations to help the plantation exist.
They
Right.
were such burning, not human. They were not like, we were literally not seen as human beings. And I don't think really understand the gravitas of what that means in the context of like, do we really think, enslaved Black folks were on the plantation just, hey, Jim Bob, hey, Mary Sue, and like living in a little thing together, and that was it.
Right. No, this is like, how traumatic is it to like birth a child and children in Seth's case, and technically that child not even be considered a human being, right?
And
like
that's possible. She don't even know her own mama.
Right.
It was it was a man, right? Like there's a whole part, I want to say like on page 30 or so.
And it talks about it throughout as well in some other places, about her mother. But
all she saw was all her memories of the back of a woman with a hat and wading in water, picking whatever crop it was, and that's your ma'am.
Yes.
You refer to everybody as ma'am, and then you get sold up river or down river, and how do you have this understanding of family or connections or even ownership over yourself?
Yeah.
And so, it's a very good foreshadowing happening with that
epigraph. So there's a Facebook comment. It says, I forgot what book it was, but somebody was talking about Black women's bodies being the literal site of production for the continuation of slavery. And I'll just say, like, there are tons of books that actually talk about that. I mean, this one as like a fictional piece, but like, what is it? Ain't I a Woman by Bell Hooks talks about it.
killing a Black body.
Dorothy Roberts. Also Angela Davis. And what is it? I can't even think. I think it's like Woman.
In the essay we're reading.
Yeah. So I mean, this is now a known fact that Black women, the expectation was for them to produce laborers, especially after the end of the slave trade as well, like when it was made illegal to trade African people from different continents, right?
So you just had to use what you had and really mule them.
Yeah.
Produce as much as you could.
Yep. So, so what do you think about the Bible verse?
Oh, I thought it was very, like, it foreshadows, and it's going to connect to a lot more in the book, because even like the ghost is named Beloved.
Right.
And how we view, what's the word for killing your children? Infesticide?
Infanticide.
I be seeing words, I don't know how to say them, but like, what does it mean as a mother who knows that you're birthing a child that's not going to be seen as a human being, and so the only way that you can show yourself as a mother is to kill your child.
Yeah. And I also see it as like, so particularly and her beloved, which was not her beloved, in thinking about that passage, it's like this ghost of a child and now like older person comes back, and it's like you're treating her as your beloved, but it's not really that person. And she's kind of evil. Like, let's be honest about it. So,
I haven't read the book and I have not seen the movie, so we got to
but she's kind of rough. And so the fact that you're still loving her as that, like, not that person, right? Like, not the beloved person that, or child that you pretend that she is. So, yeah, it foretells a lot about the coming events in the book. When we go to the next one?
Yes.
Okay. So, consider the following quotes. It's on
page 3.
Page 3. 124 was spiteful. And so 124 is the house that they're talking about. But 124 was spiteful, full of baby venom. The women in the house knew it, and so did the children. For years, each put up with the spite in his own way. But by 1873, Seth and her daughter Denver were its only victims. And so there's
on page 6 says, not a house in the country ain't packed to rafters with some dead Negro's greed.
Yes. So the question is, how does the description of 124 Bluestone Road in chapter 1 set the tone for the start of the novel? What is the importance of home space in this section? Similarly, what is the importance of family? And so I think it's important to point out that at this point in the book, like, we see her sons leave. Like, they're like, yeah, I'm out. Like, we're not doing this anymore. So they leave, and so it's just her and Denver by themselves.
And baby Shugs, who kind of just die sad.
Yes.
And when you get into, like, I think, you get into, I mean, a little bit deeper in the book. I really wish I had went ahead and numbered these chapters so I could say, but like right around page 33 or so, when Denver's talking about how, sorry, y'all. I have a new laptop and Siri keeps going off on it. Looks, now she opened up again. And then it mutes everything, so I can't hear what you're saying. It's so silly. I need to disable it because I don't ever use it. But when Denver is talking about how she views the spirit as comforting, like because she's such a lonely child and she doesn't have anybody else around, she describes how kind of baby Shug deals with it, her grandmother, how Seth kind of is resigned to it, but how she feels like, this is great to kind of anticipate that things are going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but her brothers just couldn't deal with it. They didn't even try, and they just
left. Yeah, and I think it along those lines, like, differentiates the two personalities, really. So, and those personalities are seen throughout. For me, like, I don't know, like, I think, and this is just reflecting on the novel as a whole, since it's like the opening, it tells me like there's no real true connection with Seth, because how could it be? Like, how can you really truly have a connection when you were born into these circumstances and now all of a sudden you're free and expected to behave like we assume mothers are to behave, right? Like, I don't know. So I think the quote unquote baby, the full of baby venom, so that baby venom and the victimization, different things like that, is just throughout, like, the home and their lives. Like, it just is, I don't know, it colors everything associated with them.
There's a comment from Facebook.
So everything is a symbol, home of holding grief and small amount of love, or what they think love is. They say grief is love with nowhere to go. So yeah, I think so. Definitely, I do believe that there is grief for, like killing your child, which we really don't learn about until later, but like more of the details. But there's like, how do you get through that? I don't think there's any amount of healing that can be done to like make you come to terms with that reality. So like everything about that house was tainted, if you will. And really their lives. And I just see them as this is the beginning of us understanding that they're trying to make a life out of like nothing, basically, literally nothing. So, yeah. And the importance of family, I feel like it's falling apart. I don't know. I see Seth as like trying to hold on, but still not being attentive to Denver in a way that she probably should. So, or could.
I mean, what kind of judgment of motherhood can you really put on someone who was like enslaved and who went
None.
through the sort of trauma that she went through?
None. None whatsoever.
So how do we describe a good mother?
I don't think, well, here, I don't think, and that's why I said I believe that she is trying to recreate something. It's like, and I feel like Beloved for her represents like a do-over. Like, oh, I get a chance at redemption, right? Like, I get to start over and figure it out. Um, so even in doing so without her other children. But so a comment asked, or someone asked, what is she holding on to? So, I mean, for me, it's difficult to like know what a person then was like the thought processes. But as someone like, and I think just as a woman of color, like we know what it means to have to navigate life when people don't want us to exist in the first place, and have to navigate life with some sort of like trauma. And so, yeah, I feel like she's holding on to that trauma. And again, trying to make a life at the same time. So Psych from YouTube said, my perspective is that life had really been over for them. It didn't seem like they were building, but more so living carelessly among the ruin. Yeah. And I honestly, I believe that to be true. Like, I don't know how you can like really exist or continue to exist when everything has been taken from you and you've been treated less than human, as property. And then I do see though Beloved as, and actually Beloved and Paul D as like a new opportunity for her, for Seth specifically, and Beloved as a new opportunity.
I
Huh?
haven't seen the movie and I already know Danny Glover playing that man means he ain't shit. And the
No,
funny
I'm saying,
part
but I think she saw it as like,
is on that Negro that yells at the spirit. He the one that ushered in the evilness. I'm not wrong.
but I think in the beginning though, she doesn't see the evil in either of those things. She sees in Beloved or Paul D, she sees Paul D as like, right, like intimacy, and Beloved as her child, like another opportunity. But she's proven wrong later. So, but yeah. So where is it at? So here are some other quotes. This is about, I guess, like the attempt to call forth the ghost, who we know now is beloved, early on. And so it says Seth and Denver decided to end the persecution by calling forth the ghosts that tried them. So perhaps a conversation, they thought, an exchange of views or something would help. So they held hands and said, "Come on, come on. You may as well just come on." The sideboard took a step forward, but nothing else did. So Seth and Denver attempt to speak with the ghost, introducing the prevalence of a supernatural entity into the novel. How does Seth initially grapple with this realization? And then another question associated with it in the syllabus is, what information are we given about the ghost, the sources of her discontent, and her relationship to both Seth and Denver in the opening chapter?
I'm wondering how much is it because I knew Beloved is about her killing her child, that I knew that the spirit was her child, and how much of it is that it starts with 124 is filled with baby venom is the first line of the book, right? And,
Mm-hmm.
and they kind of hint at that it's a child of hers that has died that is haunting the house because it makes Suge sad. And then,
Yeah.
Suge is her husband's mother.
Mm-hmm.
That's, yeah. So she's sad about her own lineage, her own progression. Uh,
Yes.
and then Deborah's akinness to it kind of suggests that she was one that survived versus the spirit, who was her sibling, was the one who did not survive.
Right. So,
But is
so
Seth ever really, at this point in the book, is Seth really grappling with it? Is Seth really like, it just seems like Seth knows it and is like resigned. Like, okay, this exists. It's been to exist. My life ain't shit otherwise. So like, come on, this is less trauma than the school teacher. It doesn't
right.
seem like she has this very um hard, like, psychological awareness about what does it mean for the spirit to exist in the house in the way that it does.
Yeah.
It seems like Denver is a lot more attuned.
Yeah. So I also don't think she's really. When I think of grapple, I think of like, I'm dealing with the situation. I'm really thinking thoroughly, intentionally about it. So I think it is like, for her, it's an opportunity to stop the mess that's going on. And so that's what she sees it as, not necessarily all that it will become later. But I also, uh-oh.
Yeah, my camera just went off and on.
Okay. I'm like, uh-oh.
The battery is charged though. Look, we was ready for today. I don't know why.
Right?
It's Mercury in retrograde. Put it in rice.
So you were mentioning Denver being able, like, more
Attuned.
attuned.
More aware.
Yeah. And it's
Going off again.
so it's funny that Denver is described. So if you read reviews of Beloved and other things, and just even the characterization that is provided, it describes her as like simple-minded, things like that. Yes. And so it's really funny to me
Because Seth is
that,
a complex, aware character. Or Denver. I'm sorry. Denver recently.
yeah,
I don't get Denver as a simple-minded.
I don't know. It was just like this girl that just keeps following her mother around, just like, right. But and to me, it just goes to like those things, like people talk about people who are like have like, I guess, learning differences and mental health concerns, are like able to understand I guess spiritual matters a little bit more, like.
Yeah, like this
So
is
that's what I was thinking of.
divergent people. But she reads to me as just a very lonely character. But that
Yeah.
she still has a lot of awareness of her surroundings and a lot of interest and like this great imagination. I don't know. I need to watch the movie now. I'm gonna read the book before I watch the movie.
Yes, I would recommend that. But the movie is good too. I mean, I saw the movie before I read the book, but and so
I think she might be different and a little aloof because of like what it's like, like what kind of household did Sula grow up in? Like, why do we expect these robust, like all about their wits Black women who grow up in essentially isolation and like traumatic households, right?
yeah,
Like,
not even traumatic households. That's not even, they grew up on what, like, well, and not Denver necessarily, but she's coming to be who she is like 5 years out of slavery. Like, so we have a lot of comments.
yeah, why is someone telling me don't you dare watch the movie in all
Huh?
caps?
Watch the movie if you want to. Like,
What's that about?
huh?
There's some comments about Denver that I can see.
So it says, I think the matter of Seth's naming is a really interesting thread in the novel. It is not just Seth, but naming in general is really interesting. And in talking about Denver, someone said she's very.
CJ saying, don't watch the movie. The movie is terrible.
Watch it after you read the book. You be the judge.
I'm interested in hearing your opinion on Beloved. Connected to the research that you do on the 19th century Black women.
Someone said the movie is goddamn terrible. But and then someone said Denver is very different, but I feel as though that has come from isolation and being coddled by her mother. But
are you adding the comments to the screen?
I'll add this one
so everyone else can see.
So the characters thus far are so multifaceted and responding to several things. I find myself going back and saying, "Oh, now that makes sense." So
yeah, I've like, did I read that right? Then this happen? Is this connected to that? Like, I love
yes.
I'm printing out this little bit so I can keep notes and keep track of what's happening.
Yeah,
back and forth so much.
Yeah. And here's another one. So, realistic expectations for characters and people. Please, we all carry damages and strength. So, I don't know. Like,
I'm remembering something else I have to do for the book club. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I just had a moment. Like, shit, I was supposed to do this way earlier today.
So, and then someone also said there is a part in the movie that's a bit graphic that I didn't see mentioned in the book. So, and that's the thing I think about, well, movies versus books too. Like, they add things. But I kind of like to go back a little bit. I kind of want to talk about the naming, because in the syllabus we don't really talk about that. But naming her Beloved and the things that are associated with that, how that name came to be, and how she really wanted her to be named Dearly Beloved. So, and
to me, like the idea that she wanted to name her child Dearly Beloved, like she was enslaved in like a while. Like, why wouldn't she, get a taste of freedom and like, oh, I haven't heard these words before.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe these are every time I'm thinking of joy, like the few moments of joy I've gotten, I hear Dearly Beloved. So
Yeah.
it's not an outlandish, like that doesn't register as simple-minded to me.
Oh no, I don't think that's simple-minded at all. I think the naming, it's intent. Well, and that's important because Dearly Beloved is the beginning of what? Like prayers that people, like, that many Black folks use and continue to use. And so, but the how that name came to be and I'll just say trigger warning at this point, like the fact that to get the word beloved, she had to use her body to do so. And the complexity of naming, I think, is an important point that is worth even just mentioning. So I don't know, it was interesting to me. I'm like, I actually read that every time. I think I go back over that. Like, hold on, let me just make sure I'm reading this.
Yeah, because it's even like, oh, the what she put on the headstone and how she wanted so much more, but she just went with that and like the pink glitter chips. And I'm like, they had pink glitter chips in 1860 something.
Maybe she was seeing colors, y'all. Like, I don't know.
That was the whole point. Is she stopped seeing colors after the headstone, right?
Yes.
She's, she sees, what is it? She sees the colors of the trees or at Sweet Home or something, and then the color of the pink in the headstone, and then she ceased to see color after that. Ceases to see color after that. Like that had a lot of significance. Don't look at me crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't make sense.
It did. I mean, and this is to be said from any traumatic experience, because the way that she was able to pay for the lettering was through an assault on her body. And so that traumatic experience could have stopped all things that were joyful for her, right? And so hence the end of seeing colors and different things like that. So
I do have a question about a piece, since the next question is about her talking about on page 19 about the boys taking her milk, right? And so there's a passage where Mr. Garner is talk on page 12, right? So we get this whole exchange about how Seth was like apparently the only woman at Sweet Home, or black woman enslaved at Sweet Home, right? And so it was a gift that the men did not rape her and stuck to the cows. And so Mr. Garner, who was the owner of the plantation, he's talking about his niggers, the men he owns, and he says, "Beg to differ." So whoever he's talking to, it says, "Beg to differ, Garner. Ain't no nigger men. Not if you scared they ain't." Garner's smile was wide. "But if you a man yourself, you'll want your niggas to be men too. I wouldn't have no nigger men around my wife." It was the reaction Garner loved and waited for. "Neither would I," he said, "neither would I." And there's always a pause before the neighbor or stranger or peddler or brother-in-law or whoever it was got the meaning. And I'm like, what's the meaning? What y'all think? What is the meaning of Mr. Garner referring to his enslaved black men as men, but naming them all Paul?
Right. So I don't know. For me, I see it as like, for some reason, because these men were associated with him, they were better than the other enslaved men on other plantations. That's what I took it as, because that's who he was supposed to be having a conversation with. Another, right? Like someone who was interested in his enslaved men, quote unquote men. But I don't really think, like, it's impossible to see enslaved folks as human, right? Because in saying that they're men, then you're saying that they're human, but you're enslaving them. So therefore, like, I think it's being sarcastic and playing with words to make other people angry. So to make the other slaveholders angry, basically. That's how I saw it. I just thought it was interesting, though. I also thought it was interesting that Seth was what? I think we learned that she was 13 something.
She was sent there, yeah.
Yes.
If
So
anybody watching has a take on whatever Mr. Garner was meaning by referring to his niggas as some slaves. And then she chose the one man not named Paul.
yes.
All right, let's get into the actual quote that the syllabus pulls out. I'll read it.
Okay.
So on page 19, after I left you, those boys came in there and took my milk. That's what they came in there for. Held me down and took it. I told Mrs. Garner on them. She had that lump and couldn't speak, but her eyes rolled out tears. Them boys found out. I told on them. School teacher made one open up my back, and when it closed, it made a tree. It grows there still. A major theme within the novel is the role of memory, its importance, power, and limitations. How do Seth's memory about Sweet Home help develop the theme of memory? Well, they certainly remind you that it was slavery.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
You know that we are in a very specific time period, and introducing you to something. You know, it's like we all know the idea that like are the trope of the slave with the welts on their back, right? But the way she gives it the narrative to it and the meaning to it and the connection to it and the way it's even explored because Paul D comes to the house and you know he feels it and he's like it's magical to him in that moment. And then once he gets what he would, just like a nigga, it's no longer
Yeah.
magical after he, you know,
Right.
sneaks it in, right? We got that part too, but uh, the, you know how we're introduced to a very traumatic experience and a very traumatic memory of the industry of slavery, right? And how people were kept in place.
Yeah. And I actually even see like so the fact that it's called Sweet Home, right? Like what is like why was that done, right? Also her description of so Seth's description of Mrs. Garner, like portraying her as the sweet person, but yet and still like you got slaves, sis.
About the
Like,
slavery, yeah, like
right,
we ain't weaponizing her femininity. You
right.
liable for what's happening here.
Yeah. So it's funny. So I'll try to find it, but it's funny. There's a book, I guess it came out last year, and it's about white women who were
Slave
really
owners. I
controlling.
bought it.
Huh?
By Stephanie Rogers.
I believe so. Let me see.
I think I just got it in the mail, but my bookshelf of two read books is in the
Yes. Yes. But it's just interesting to me because I feel like, and I think it's done on purpose, but like, and we'll get to this, I guess, at some point, but all of the white women in this in this book are somehow like portrayed as like good people, but yet and still they have this evilness to them. Um, and so like I think it's very telling. Oh, someone said they were her property, question mark.
Yeah, they were her property because her
Yeah,
husband passed away. And they
yeah,
her.
yeah. So and like if she was so nice, she wouldn't have let him, like she wouldn't have. So like the backstory is that like they, so the reason why Seth was beat, right? And whipped was because of an attempted escape. So like if that were the case, you would have just been like, okay, go ahead. Like bye. Right? Like so Sweet Home is not so sweet. But yeah.
Wait, that was a rape? So them taking her milk was a rape?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I was like. Am I reading this right? Am I
Yes.
reading as them taking her milk or them taking her body and raping her?
They also raped her
Yes. Okay.
in addition to taking her milk.
Okay.
But I mean, I like any I would just say any attack on the body that is not welcomed. Like rape is basically just pillaging, right? Like you're taking something that does not belong to you. And so, and often it is associated with taking something intimate. that does not belong to you. And so, like, a mother's milk, and I don't have children, but I'm just like thinking, like, right, like how horrible like that is. Like, so one, you're telling me now I don't have anything to feed my children with.
But that, is it even that I don't have anything to feed my children with? You took my children, and now you've taken the reminder of my children, right? Like, this is like, just toppling on the reminder that Seth does not get to own even her own body.
Yeah.
And so she can't even nurse her children. She can't care for her children the way she would want to care for her children. And then, it just heightens the significance of the violence she's experiencing. And it's not
Mhm.
just an event, right? We're not just seeing it as the sexual assault and rape as an event. It's an ongoing thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, her existence is to constantly wake up and experience violence that she has no way to change or stop
Right.
or do anything about.
And now on top of that, now she has this scar that that's always going to serve as a reminder of that moment. Always. So these things is so that is etched in her memory. And it's like,
That's
even
why she
if
can't remember nothing, because she's talking about Sweet Home, and like, why would you want to remember that trauma, right? Like, you
right,
knew those beautiful trees, what they did, right, or what they were used for, but you still, like, the power of your mind and just trying to survive, she still sees those beautiful trees.
right. So yeah, I don't, and I mean, and this is just like with any victim of trauma, often like the attempt to block memories, like it's a tactic, it's a psychological tactic for survival. And so not remembering things is a way that I think she tried to survive. But then, like, Beloved brought it, Lord brought it back, and Pawsy,
I
like,
mean, but even Big Baby Shook couldn't remember her own. Like, none of them remember their children or how they were talking. She's saying, when her sons first left, she would try to see them in other people, like she was looking for them. But then her one son's 13-year-old face melds with the baby face, and that's the last memory she has of him.
right,
Because of the pain of knowing that you can't find your child.
yeah. Like, again, I can never imagine like that, like, and then it happening consistently. So not like something that just happens one time, but these women were expected to like continuously birth laborers because they weren't even considered children. So like, and do it in kind of robotic fashion. Like, as soon as you're done, what we got, like, right? Like, it's time to impregnate you again. So I don't know. And then even, I don't know, like, it's a lot going on in this in this section. Well, in the book, period. But
I mean, these conversations will be spicy, but we can close out here.
okay. I mean, that's
here. This is where we were ending anyway, unless you
it
have something to
is.
say.
Yeah.
Who's
So
doing the discussion on Friday?
Will Diamond.
Ooh, Diamond and who? Okay.
Me
Well,
or
then,
you?
yeah, it'll probably be one of us again. I
Yes.
might see you all again on Friday.
Yes.
Okay. If you would like to join us for the live discussions, come join the cohort, because clearly we need more folk. But also, remember, we're reading on the expiration pack. Let me plug the syllabus that is printed. We are offering a printed version of Mama's Baby, Papa's Maybe, because it's an essay. So the syllabus includes, this is my copy that I've been using, but it includes, you see me circling the words because I don't know what they mean, but it includes the essay. So Giddy, I ship them out, media mail, so you get tracking with them. And they're really nice. I think I only have maybe like 15 copies of this left, but grab y'all so you can join this discussion, because this definitely helps make Beloved an even more intriguing read.
Mm-hmm. And remember to grab your book and read it and prepare. And notate where the quotes. Wait, I'm like on the other side. Notate the quotes.
You got all them notes in the book. It must have.
Post-its are my friend. Post-its.
Oh, you know, I got a little tab, so I be writing
I got
notes in the
little
margin.
ones. I got little ones. Little ones.
You know, did I say they tripping? What's this? Oh, the epigraph.
All right, everyone. So we'll see you Friday.
Holla at you later. Bye.
Bye.